Hey guys, I'm back for another video, and today I would like to talk about Hytale's corruption. I've noticed a trend, and it's that, the infection idea is in a lot of games, There's plenty of games where there's some sort of a virus or some sort of a terrain thing that's going on that just infects everything, and it just makes the ground all sticky and gross, and it infects people and mobs, and it just goes nuts. For example, you have things like Amnesia: The Dark Descent. There's this fleshy growth that just goes over the mansion, and it's really creepy, and I still to this day do not remember why that happens. But that's an example. There's an SCP that actually does that too. Makes a red flesh area thing. It's really weird. I had a phase with SCPs where I would just do nothing but watch videos about them for a month. It was interesting to say the least. Anyway, there's that, and then of course there's Terraria, which has corruption. Apparently two kinds. There's a noble one and a red one. But today I would like to compare Hytale's corruption to that of Minecraft Blightfall, and more specifically Thaumcraft. I'm going to try to avoid the name of Thaumcraft's infection in most of this. It's called taint, which has other meanings, so I'm just gonna call it the infection. But But yeah, so let's start with the comparison, shall we? So from what we've seen in the Hytale trailer and blog post is that the corruption is a purple goo that infects the ground, it infects entire areas, and of course mobs. We see the golem. And then if you go to Blightfall, it's the same exact way. It's a purple goo that overtakes the terrain and mobs, and it turns them evil. If you go even further, right, it turns out, Thaumcraft is all about magic. And I would imagine that the infection in that mod is, again, caused by magic, which is the same reason why it happens in Hytale. So I'm seeing a theme here. It could be a common theme in media to have magic cause a spread of some sort of disease or something. I don't know. But anyway, using that comparison, right, we can investigate a lot of things that happen in Blightfall, and there's a good chance that it might be in Hytale. So let's get going. For one thing, Blightfall was really fun because it was one of the most challenging packs I've ever played, and not in a grindy way. It was challenging because the terrain itself kills you. It presents a challenge because you have to not only avoid tainted areas, but you also have to make sure that your stuff doesn't touch it. You can't get a piece of goo in your inventory, because if you do, it will start to spread to all your items and just infect everything and make it useless. If you stand in it for too long, you take damage, unless you're wearing boots. But there's always a way around things, right? If you were to be walking around in the tainted landscape, then you will meet monsters that come up out of the goo. For example, there's a tentacle that forms inside the goo, and if you're within a certain radius of the main tentacle, it will attack you through the ground by burrowing extra appendages through the ground and attacking you that way. It's crazy. I think there's also a flying gnat version of the goo that could spread it to more places, which is also pretty terrifying, because that means you can't just build a bridge above the tainted areas, because that thing will attack you and it could potentially knock you off the platform and you'll just land in the goo and die. And the only thing that holds it back is silverwood trees. It's a magical tree in Thaumcraft that I don't know why it gets rid of it, but it just does. It's a force of good, I guess. There's also some mysterious monsters hiding in the distance, and one of them is the assassin, and it shoots at you from a very far distance. Just take damage randomly and it'll be wait, where'd that come from? Why am I dying? And it's a skeleton, but it's got a crossbow, and it just shoots super duper far. And they have 40 hearts, so it's really difficult to kill one. So there's just some really dangerous stuff out there. And of course it will infect normal mobs too. So there's such a thing as an infected pig, which turns into a generator. Then it's okay, so if I remember correctly, right, the sheep turns into a generator of more goo. It turns into a way to produce more goo. And then you have the pig, which is basically the brute, the thing that has the most health, and it takes a beating, but it is the main soldier for the goo. It's almost like there's a sentience to it. And then you have the chickens, which are like a really easy way for it to spread because it can move so fast. And things like that. Oh, and there is one more weakness to the infection. I just realized it's water. It doesn't spread over rivers, which is interesting. I think that's a biome thing though, so I don't know if that's really, I don't know if that's game limitation reasons or if that's like actually in the lore. But anyway, yeah, so these could all be things that are in Hytale's corrupted areas. How cool would that be? Oh, and on a related but not related topic, Blightfall was great because of a certain mod. I forgot what it's called, but it made it so that your character can't eat the same thing constantly to survive. You would get sick of certain kinds of food over time, and you would have to be forced to make something else, which added a really interesting level of difficulty to the game. It promoted making different kinds of food, and all of them had value simply because they were different, and I think that is a great thing that could be in maybe the higher difficulty versions of Hytale, because I know for a fact I like to settle on things. I like to find the best thing and stick with it the whole game, and that's boring. And of course, you know, it's ironic that I'm saying it's boring, because then it's like, well, why don't you eat different kinds of food? Because it just wouldn't logically make sense to make, for example, cookies in Minecraft. There is no reason to do that because they're slow to eat. They only produce like half a chicken nugget's worth of hunger. And then meanwhile, you have something like a golden carrot, which produces like 8 times as much. So there's like no reason at all. So I think a mod that makes your character sick of eating like say 5 of the same food type in a row, and you just won't get any hunger from it back. And which I think you can make the argument, it makes sense in real life, because nutrition, if you just ate nothing but pasta your whole life, you would be malnourished and probably die young. So yeah, I think something like that would be great, and that was something Blightfall had. That's something I think Hytale could really benefit from on a difficulty and gameplay perspective. I also think it'd be cool if you could experiment with the goo to make different pieces of equipment. So maybe, for example, it would be a good way to make a mob grinder. Maybe there'd be a version of the goo that you can make that like is sterilized, so it doesn't like spread, but it still kills things, and you can use that to farm mobs. Or maybe you can use it to ferment different kinds of like potions or whatever. Who knows? So it'd give it value so that you'd have an incentive to go into an infected area and collect samples. Maybe you can, of course, grab some to make a cure for the infection. Who knows? Those are my thoughts on the purple goo of Hytale and Blightfall. I think they're very similar, and again, there's a lot of inspirations taken from Terraria. So I don't know anything about Terraria's infection, but I feel like a lot of that will probably make its way into Hytale as well. Well, anyway, leave a like down below if you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to continue the Hytale discussion, then you should check out my Twitter. You could be there to be involved in the conversation. Well, anyway, that's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.